Welcome on the show, Kevin.
Thanks so much. Good
Thank
to
you
be here.
for making the time to do this. Really appreciate it.
Not at all.
Yeah. The reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is last time we had Nigel on, he said you're a very interesting character. And I recorded it and I went home and I researched more about it and I was like, damn, this guy's done some real cool stuff. Start us off. You've done, you've walked across South Pole.
Yes.
You've
South Pole.
rode from one
Side of the ocean.
one side of the ocean to the other.
Yeah.
Why though?
Why?
Why do you do it?
Do you
The
know-
normal person wouldn't aspire to do
You're-
such
no,
things.
You're exactly right. A normal person in their normal lives wouldn't do it. In fact, whenever I get an email, like I do once or twice a year, from people who want to do things like this, the very first question, and they're asking me for advice, the first question I ask them is, what's going wrong in your life? And they always say, nothing, except I've just broken up with my wife, my business has just collapsed, I'm going through some troubles at the moment. Can I row across the ocean? Yeah.
So why did you do it?
Because my life was going through a dark
Really?
spot. I was
Sure.
exactly the same. Yeah, well, there's a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is that my life was really crumbling and I needed something. I thought what I needed was a big adventure to straighten it out. I needed some big goal that I could hang my hat on, that I could really 100% devote my energy to.
Yeah.
And that would pull all the kinks out of my life and I would achieve something and I'd feel good
Right.
about doing it.
So
The
you were
longer
seeking
answer is...
struggle.
Huh?
You were seeking some form of struggle to...
I was actually. I wanted to beat myself up a little bit. I wanted a little bit of pain. I wanted a bit of effort. But to be honest, it was also a very logical process. So what I did was I'd been working in the corporate world for a bit and then decided that this isn't what I thought I was going to be. I was turned 32, I think, 32. And as a young guy growing up, you don't have much conception of time. Like a year is a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't imagine where you'd be in a year, right? You've got your year is packed full of interesting stuff that's going to happen. And next year, you're going to be better looking, smarter,
Hopefully.
more ripped. And that continues all through your 20s. You get to 30, no problem, blast on through. Then you get to 32 or 33, you're in your mid-30s now, and you go, hang on a second, what happened here? I can't be that. There's a whole bunch of things you can never... I'm never going to be a Formula One race car driver, not at 31. I'm never going to be a world-class sprinter.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if I wanted to be a world-class sprinter, but doors are starting to close.
Yeah.
Like right now, you could change your life and you could be a shot put champion. Maybe not a shot put champion.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You see what I mean? And so in your 20s, you're just blind to that because time is forever. You got all the time in the world. And the other thing is, I'm too young. I was too young. I'm in my 20s. I'm too young to become
Clubbing, partying.
make movies.
Exactly.
Like maybe I can't be Steven Spielberg. Maybe if that was my goal, I was too young. And then by the time you get to the early 30s, you realize you don't have any excuses anymore. You can't say you're too young because you're not too young. People have, run countries by your age. I don't know what Shea was when he led a revolution, but it's probably in his 30s.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think early 30s.
Early 30s,
Yep.
there you go. And so you got no excuses. You can't make up, and you're running out of time.
Yeah.
You're too old to be a child prodigy by the time you're in your early 30s. And so I thought, did I when I was 12 and I didn't really know how the world worked and my head was full of dreams about what my life was going to be like and everything was just an open book, I didn't think I was going to be working in a cubicle under fluorescent lights,
True.
bleaching myself out, working for the man. That's not what I had in mind. I thought there'd be something else.
Do you think it was regret of missing out on so many other opportunities or pathways that led you to seek out that challenge?
That's right. So I thought there was an opportunity cost of what I was doing. Yeah. I thought, hang on. I can see what the next 10 years is going to be like for the first time. I mean, there's no way you know what you're going to be doing in 10 years' time.
No
right?
one really does, yeah.
When you're what? 30. I can see exactly what I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time now.
Now?
Yeah. just like I am now, but 10 years old, unless I do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's what hit me when I was 32. I was like, damn, I can see what my life's going to be like for the first time, because I was, established. I guess I had a house, I had a girlfriend, a really serious one.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was from a world that had been only huge in terms of all the possibilities of what I could think, of what I might be able to do with my life, and suddenly it was starting to focus down to very few things. And unless I took control of the reins, I was going to be stuck. I was going to be doing this pathway, which I realized I hadn't really chosen for myself. I was just going to be the corporate beast, the corporate animal, and I was going to get a nice house somewhere, and I was going to start to raise kids, and they were going to go to the school that I went to, and then the cycle of life was going to repeat itself.
Yeah.
And nothing was going to change.
So you're sort of bored of the day-to-day or the routine or the path that had been laid out before. You needed to seek something.
I know what you're. I can see what you're saying,
because
but
what
bored
you did was
isn't the right
really
word.
interesting, though.
Yeah, I think the process was more interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about that, because because I know one of the first questions you asked when we came in was, "What am I going to do next?" Because you think I'm going to say, "I'm going to climb El Capitan."
Yeah,
and
I thought
feet,
something
right?
is going to be extreme.
Say.
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm not the adventurer guy. I'm not. That's not what I do. I'm not. Look at me. I'm dressed up in corporate clothes and stuff like that. I'm not swinging an axe or anything, or in my Speedos, or not just like Bear Grylls or whatever. Because my goal setting thing is about what. It can be anything, right? You don't have to do adventures. The adventure you're going to NYU next year. That's a big adventure. You might have some goals for that.
Yeah.
Starting your own business,
Yeah,
definitely an adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to travel overseas. There's lots of things you can do that don't involve risking your life out in the middle of an ocean. That's actually kind of a bit of a dumbass.
Yeah.
It captures people's imagination.
Yeah.
It gets great pictures, but the mechanics of how you put together it, of trying to imagine what your goal is going to be, about breaking it down, and about assessing if it's worthwhile, and then pursuing it. It's an investment. It's an investment in time and energy, and that investment can be anything.
Yeah.
So people, because I mean, my main business now is I speak. So I speak to corporate audiences, and the first thing I say is I'm going to be talking about my adventures, but you are on an adventure as you go achieve your goals.
Yeah.
And so,
but I think it's very inspiring when you see someone do something very extreme. It's very inspiring, because in a way, when I read your story, I was like, damn, like that could be possible. Not for me to do the same thing, but for me to put in the context of my own life, and sort of seek out my own goals, but taking that inspiration of what you did. You know what I mean? I think that is what's cool.
I hope so. That's exactly how I hope it works.
Yeah.
Is that you see what I've done about rowing across an ocean, trek to the South Pole, and you go, damn, that's inspiring. I want to go and get my master's degree overseas.
Exactly.
That makes more sense. Because if you said, that looks really awe-inspiring, I'm going to walk to the North Pole, I'd be like, okay, well, that's cool.
One up.
But but that's cool. But it can be any goal. It really can be any goal. So what I did is, back to your question, is when I was trying to work out what I should do, I only knew that I needed to do something to grab my hold of my life back. What I did was I wrote a list of all the dream jobs that I wanted, that I might have, all the dream jobs, and then I went and met people who were doing those jobs, which is a great way of doing it.
What were some of them?
Huh?
What were some of them?
Some of them?
Yeah.
Like making films, making movies. Then for the adventurous side, I went and met Rob Hamill, who you might not know this, but he was the first person to win the transatlantic rowing race. There's quite a few Kiwis who have been in that race.
Yeah.
And so, I got to meet him. He won it. And so it's a very powerful meeting people who are achieving, who have achieved what you want to achieve. Because then your crazy goal doesn't seem so crazy anymore. I mean, people say that to me. They say, I have this crazy goal, but I don't want to tell anyone because they'll think it's absolutely crazy. And they're right. If they tell their friends that they want to be the national weightlifting champion and they're not a weightlifter, their friends will say, you're nuts. You tell your mum that you want to row across an ocean, she tells you you're nuts. Yep.
Yeah.
She absolutely does tell you.
Well, there's two sides to that. This author, Ryan Holiday, was saying that arguing that you shouldn't tell anyone your goals because
You shouldn't.
you shouldn't.
Yep.
You should keep it to yourself. He was saying that when you some people when they tell someone their goals, it feels as if they've already achieved it. That dopamine hit of telling someone and them being like, "Oh, that's awesome, nice job," gives you that sort of false certainty that you've already done it.
Yeah.
And therefore, he was saying that it demotivates or it gives you that false perception of you've already achieved it, and you won't really follow through.
Yeah.
But I guess that's sort of the different perspective to that is when you tell someone, you could pay, they'll probably doubt you or whatever, or they could hold you accountable. Sort of like three perspectives to that, which is like pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But
isn't it fascinating that you mentioned that Ryan Holiday, for example, what was his book?
He's written a couple of really good books.
Really?
Obstacles Away, Ego is the Enemy.
That's the one I've got in my bookshelf at the moment.
Very good book.
Is it? I started reading it. I started reading it, and he broke a rule that I have.
Okay.
Just to take a step back, there's a problem with the advice industry, like the motivational advice industry, because that's the industry that I'm in, right? And so I go and I'm like a motivational speaker. I'd never say that at a party because it sounds like you're a wanker. But that's what people type into Google.
True.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking motivational speaker here. Live with passion.
Okay.
No, and so the problem is that the advice industry is just rubbish, and particularly when it comes to goal setting, everything is conflicting advice. People, he's got a great point. You shouldn't tell people your goals. Other people say you got to tell people your goals. Got to get yourself on the hook. Make yourself accountable. Do you look before you leap, or do you he who hesitates is lost?
Yeah.
Which one is it? What's another one? Quitters never quit.
Yeah. Or follow
winners never quit. Quitters never win.
Yeah.
Or are you completely nuts to keep doing the same thing again and not getting the same result?
Yeah.
It's just rubbish. I could write a list of things that would look like goals and ask you which one were goals. You wouldn't say. Let me give you another one.
Okay.
Ran to the top. I tried to run to the top of a mountain the other day. I didn't get to the top. Did I fail?
No, the top. You didn't get to the top.
Yeah.
Depends
Whatever you say, the opposite is also true. I mean, it's just saying we don't recognize goals. We don't recognize what failure is or not.
Yeah.
We have completely conflicting advice about it. And so Ryan Holiday broke one of my rules.
Okay.
Because I have this list of like 5 things. I've got a blog about it, about how you detect BS advice. Okay. If they mention, and I think the one that he broke, and one of the most powerful ones is if the opposite is also true. If you have a piece of advice and you go, I wonder if that's true or not.
Okay.
All you do is say to yourself, is the opposite also true? If they said to me, because I've seen speakers do this, they get up in front of the audience and they say, details. The problem with you guys is you're not looking at the details. I coached this Ironman guy and he used to take the raisins out of his freaking muesli every morning and cut his toothbrush in half and shave half an inch off his shoelaces. Detail. That's what. Focused on the details. Now, if he had stood up and said, the thing that's wrong with you guys, you're not thinking big picture. Think big picture. That's your problem.
Yeah.
And that's possible too. And so now it doesn't mean what they're telling you is false, but it's a big red light. The other one, sorry, I'm cutting you off, Charles. I know.
I see. Yeah.
The other one is famous people. If you mention dopamine too early, don't go to dopamine. Right? Because it doesn't explain anything. It doesn't explain.
How so?
There's a thing called the nominal fallacy.
Okay.
Which is really ironic because I've just used it. Which is if you give something a fancy scientific name, you think you've explained it. Mm-hmm. It's the nominal fallacy.
Yeah.
That's the irony of that.
It's your psychological.
And so, and dopamine's a little bit like that. You say, the reason why you're doing this, Taza, is because it gives you a burst of dopamine inside your head. I haven't explained a single thing. And you're no clear at all, but it sounds like an explanation. The other thing that he said, but that's two of them. The third one is, and the one that Ryan Holiday did, I think, was he mentioned famous people too early. Mentioned the big names, like he cracked out the Winston Churchill, the Gandhi, or something like that. The
well,
Nelson
don't you think it's
Mandela.
his style of writing? His style of writing is taking historical stories and explaining lessons.
It's
like Robert Greene's
there's a
books.
huge problem with doing that.
Okay.
Let me tell you what the problem is.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. It is, those books are almost always nonsense.
Right.
And I'll explain why. Let's say you and I was watching people. This is a terrible example to use for someone from your background, but let's say I want to run through a minefield.
Okay.
And I'm watching. I see a bunch of people run through the minefield, and I interview the people who've survived the minefield. And I say, how did you survive that? He said, and you might say to me, look, all I did was I set myself a goal. I picked a course and I just put my head down and ran. That's what I did, and that's what made me successful. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, great, that's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to get out of my minefield. Yep. And then you do that, and bang, you turn into a puff of red mist. And the problem is, you didn't interview all of the people who also who failed. Mm-hmm. If you interview people who win, the advice that you get, you don't know if the advice that you're getting is simply because they survived.
Okay, yeah.
So if you read, and so there is endless numbers of marketing self-help books, like In Search of Excellence.
Yeah.
I should say I have a stutter, so that's why I'm pausing.
Yeah.
In Search of Excellence is a classic one, and there's lots of them like that. And what they did is they went out and looked at all the major companies, all the big companies that were doing incredibly well at the time, right? And they said, what do these companies have in common?
Yep.
And then that's going to be good advice, right? And so two things happened. Mm-hmm. First of all, they interviewed, because it's done a few years ago, huge household winning names like Wang, Xerox, Atari. They all the companies are about to go bust, but they didn't know. But it looked like they were huge. That's what they did.
Okay.
And then the companies said things like, you got to take risks. You got to have your big, hairy, audacious goal and just go for it, right? Completely rubbish. Because if he had interviewed, so you know it was rubbish because all those companies failed. Okay. So it clearly didn't work. Yeah. And then if you had bothered to interview all the people who, you have to interview the failures as well, because I'm certain almost all of them would have said we had big, hairy, audacious goals. Okay. And we went hard at it and charged, and we failed. So so the problem is, if you interview the great men, if you could interview Nelson Mandela, or Winston Peters. No, did I say Winston Peters? Winston Churchill.
Winston Peters.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Then you don't know what they tell you is going to be is actually the thing that's make them successful. Winston Churchill had a huge drinking issue, so maybe it was the drink that made him successful.
Right.
If you followed his life, you'd become a boozer.
Yeah.
Gandhi apparently bet his wife.
Oh, yeah. He did a lot of random shit.
A lot of random stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot of people, if you read his autobiography, he used to, he wouldn't have sex with these young girls. He wouldn't have sex with them, but he would sleep with them naked to test his own willpower.
Respect.
You know what I mean? Which is very odd, but it's weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
a lot of people don't really see
in a different direction.
Yeah. Martin Luther King cheated on his wife a couple times. You know, these big names oftentimes are shaded.
I think if you're a great man, if you're a man that's sort of the Ryan Holiday wants to learn from, then I think one of the things you can take away from it is that you can treat the people around you like poos, as long as you do big enough on the world stage. You see, that's what I mean. It's complicated. Yes, you can definitely look. I'm not saying you should throw the baby out here, but you should you should read these books. They are inspiring what people go through.
I think, with a lot of caution.
With caution. That's because you don't know if the lessons you're giving you are real, and you don't know if you apply this advice whether it would be successful or not. Interviewing, it's logically horribly flawed. Right. You've got to be really careful. that when someone says how they achieve something, then you've got to, what you'd ideally do is to take the method, and they never give a method, but if they did, and then apply it to a group of people, and then not apply it to a control group, and then see who was more
scientifically
successful.
Test this
That's
assumption.
right. You'd want to scientifically test it, but they don't. That's not how we get advice. We say, you've got to have big dreams, got to work hard.
But surely there's some universal tactics or
there's got to be
keys.
some.
Surely there are universal ones that, like philosophy, like Stoic philosophy. It's not what happens to you, but what you do about it. Like surely this sort of advice
makes you happier. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Back to your sort of South Pole adventure.
Yeah.
You didn't finish.
No.
What was, how did it happen? How did you get on?
Well.
Or the rowing experience?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last thing. What did you say?
The rowing experience.
Oh, yeah.
Whole,
so do you want to do
getting
South
into
Pole?
Adventure.
Okay. Yeah. I guess the. I mean, it's an interesting point, really. These adventures cannot have been hard because I did them, and I'm just like you. I lived just down the road.
Yeah.
How? East Side. We used to come here to party, man.
True.
Baccarat was the big city. Big smoke. Yeah.
Big smoke.
So it looks like my house that I grew up in, and so I feel like I've come home being here. My uncle used to live around the corner.
Yeah.
And so the adventures capture people's imagination, but it's not really but it's hard to describe. I'm getting lost in my own thoughts here. Let's answer your question. How about that for a change? Okay, so you were saying...
So I was saying, what made you get into this whole adventuring? That was the first question.
First question. Yeah, okay. So what I did was I was going through these jobs.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I thought I might be an exploration geologist.
Yep.
Thought that would be fun, like, finding out where oil wells should be, and you get to fly around the world. And because I had a physics background, my degree's in physics, and so I thought that could easily transfer over to, learning how to find oil. What was I thinking? But met people who were doing this job, met people and they say, I've got a fantastic job. I said, what do you do? I sit in front of a computer screen all day and I look at scans that come from satellites or people who've, whatever. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, really? You sit inside all day? Yep. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Not for me.
Yeah.
Met Rob Hamill.
Okay.
Thought, so I was watching TV one day and I saw this clip on the news about the last person to complete the transatlantic rowing race, and thought, hey, that could be fun, because that was one of my things. One of my list of things, my jobs, was to be an adventurer. I don't know how you'd make any money out of it, but I had met, I'd loved that stuff at school, like Captain Scott, going to the South Pole. He died on the way back, and you read about Oates walking out into the blizzard to try and save the lives of the others and all that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. I just really loved it, and really loved adventure books. I loved Indiana Jones, right? It's got to be the same as that. So I met Rob Hamill. He was like, yeah, of course you can row across the ocean. It's really easy. And I thought, that sounds really cool. Well, maybe I could. Mm-hmm. So I went and told my mum. She said, no, you can't.
Yeah.
So, because I was living at home at the time, I'd in my early 30s returned home.
Really?
I sold my house, left my job.
So
I was having a bit of a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
So you see, everything seemed better. So I thought being having a corporate job was bad. Well, living at home with your mum is even worse.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
So I was.
So did you decide before then you're going to quit your job and do this, or was it after?
I wanted to reset. I was going through. I was going through a period of time where I was wondering who was controlling my life.
Yeah.
It was a real. Yeah. It was because I thought growing up that I had could be anything, do anything, right? And then it turns out, and as I reflected on my life, I was thinking, hang on a second. There was only 5 jobs I could ever be. I was going to be a businessman, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer. That's about it. Banker maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I was never going to be a bear trapper in Tashkent. Never. I was never going to.
Well, why not?
Because that's not the way. Because that's right. Yeah, exactly. Why not? Because
Yeah.
there's subtle forces controlling your life. Don't get too spooky on you, but that's essentially what's going to happen. I'd done a lot of travel, traveled around the world. You asked me, I said, well, what I've done? I traveled around the world. Hang on, no, I haven't. I've gone to all those places that were part of the British Empire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I traveled a lot around Europe, traveled a lot around England, India, I don't know, Australia a lot, Singapore, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I never was going to go to Turkmenistan. Never going to go to Senegal. Never going to go to French Guyana. Have you ever met someone who's gone to French?
No, I haven't.
Guyana. It's just because the way we think of the world, a lot of time in the States, because we have this map of the world in our heads that's quite distorted. It's interesting when you meet people who live in Spain, their worldview is different because they see the South American, they see the Spanish-speaking side of the world. So they travel around the world. They go to Colombia, they go to Cuba, they go to the Spanish Empire,
Yeah.
And I realized I've never, it was just, you asked the question, why was never going to be a bear trapper in Tashkent? Well, why would I would never go to Tashkent? Because I only have 2 years to travel around the world. I've got to go and see the Eiffel Tower. I've got to go and see Rome. I've got to go and see, Turkey, because that's really cool. Those places are all really cool, right? You got to go to see those places.
Yeah.
I don't have time to go to Tashkent. You just go to the place. It's not. I'm not saying anyone's controlling your brain, but just practically because of the way we live in our culture, that there is this. I want a professional job that pays well.
Yeah.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be broke, so I'm not going to be. I don't know, a homeopathist.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not going to be. So there's only some jobs that I can do.
Yeah.
If that's my main goal in life.
Yeah.
Because I've been raised as a, East Side kid, then that's my goal is to break out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to break out if I'm just selling candles at the market, right? I got to do something.
Yeah.
Got to do some sort of white collar job, right? So I became, in my early 30s, I was thinking, hang on a second, I'm living a life that somebody else has chosen for me. There is a whole world out there that I'm not experiencing. That I've got to experience. And so that was part of this meltdown. I thought, so I quit my job, and went back home to live with Mum so I could then go overseas. And I went and travelled. I never went to Tashkent, but I travelled, had a great time, and it's great to get out of the country and you get a new perspective on what your issues are. But then I came back home and I'm like, well, now what do I do? What do I do now? You could do anything, so what are you going to do? And that's when I went and made up this list of jobs I'd like, and then started to meet people who were doing them, and then thought being an adventurer might be fun. Then I met Rob Hamill. Then the last rowing race had just completed. The next one was in 2 years' time. So now is the time to start to put together a campaign. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to be an adventurer, why don't I go to the South Pole? Well, that seemed way too hard, way too complicated. Like people who go there, they actually know things about the cold. They know how to handle themselves. I don't know anything, right, about that. But then I did some research and found that mothers and sons had done the rowing race. Husbands and wives had done it. People who built their boats at the bottom of the garden had managed to get across to the other side.
Sure.
Yeah. So you could be a muppet and still get through this race. And I thought, that's what I want. I want something that's not going to kill me, because that's quite important. And but I could take on and I also I was captured by the visual picture in my head about how amazing it would be to be out in the ocean, away from everybody, at night time with just the stars and just tapping along. That's the sort of romantic view of what I had about the ocean. So, yeah, I thought that could be fun. And then I'd finally have achieved something. Yeah. That's what I felt. I really
How was the whole experience? Must have been fucking difficult.
It was really hard. Yeah. But the best piece of advice I got was 90% of the race is getting to the start line. And by far, that's the hardest. Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. By the time you get to the start, the race is not that hard. It's not. Anybody could do it.
You mean the
and
preparation
I do mean anybody
training?
could do it. The preparation and the training. But even the training. There are people who turn up at the start line who haven't done a lot of training.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tougher now. I think the race requires you to have done some work. Like you need to have spent a lot of time on your boat. Yeah. A lot of nights on your boat. And now, but then people were turning up who were just doing it as a lark. But the thing is, the wind and the currents do eventually float you across. If you threw a cork in at the start, it would eventually wash up on the other side. Okay. Might take you 100 days, which is a long time to be in a little boat. Way too long for me. But
how long did it take you?
40 days.
40 days on a boat?
I think the longest it's taken someone is 110.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's a long time to be in the boat.
40 days, that's like over a month. Did you just go straight? No breaks, like you didn't get off the boat, you were just on the boat 40 days?
On the boat the whole time, yeah.
Fuck. Were you never bored? Like, what the fuck am I
Well, the best question I got was, what did you do for exercise?
Yeah.
Size.
The road. Sure.
We were trying to win, so it was a race for us. So yeah, so there wasn't much rest. I mean, there wasn't much time for fun, really.
True.
Yeah.
What about when the waters were really, stormy or?
Happened on a couple of days, and you'd.
Were you not scared? Were you not like, damn, like
So we got thrown got thrown off the boat.
Yeah.
About 2 days out from the end. That was scary. So one of the things
at night or during the
at
day?
night time, yeah.
Holy, at dark.
Dark. Was spooky. Actually, the sun had just set. So, well, let me explain. So, one of the things I did when I thought I might take part in the race was to see how risky it was. Mm-hmm. How many people had died doing it. That seems important to know.
Yeah.
Because if you want to climb Mount Everest, right, you'd look into that. It turns out a lot of people died climbing Mount Everest.
I've heard,
It's riskier than it looks because the problem is the pictures make it seem simple, but
romantic.
Yeah, but so 6 boats, 12 crew have been lost rowing across this ocean. So not in this race, but in this ocean. And so
lost, no bodies found.
No bodies found. They always find the boat though. Jeez. Or the boat always gets through it. Boat's fine. Just aliens take the people up for science experiments. So I thought, hang on a second, I'll stay tied onto the boat.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
So there we are, rowing near the end, not tied onto the boat. Because by that time we'd spent 6 weeks almost on the boat, and so we were used to the seas. And the seas were getting a bit large that day. And I remember thinking we should probably put our safety lights on. But then this wave came along that was a bit bigger. And so we got it. We came down the front of the wave, and then it couldn't stay straight though. Sometimes if you've played in the surf with a surfboard, that happens, right? Sometimes the side digs in or whatever and wants to go horizontal, wants to go with the wave, and so that's what happened to us. And it dug the side and it flung us out. So the boat didn't go upside down, thank God, because that would have been terrible. But it did. It really put a big. A lot of water came on to the boat. And mostly the boat's designed for it to self-right and to have all the water come out, except all the water that had gone into the back cabin. So we had to get all that water out, and the electrics got a bit shonky after that. That was, so you asked about the scary times. That was probably the worst time. They were saying
What's going in your mind? Like, were you like shit? Like, were you freaked out, or did you prepare for this?
Yeah, I guess at the time it just happened so quick. I was standing up. Thank goodness I wasn't in the back. Jeez. And we just changed shifts, so I just stood up. Jamie was at the oars, and what do you think as you get flung overboard was like? Oh, this is really bad. And so the first thing you do when you hit the water is try and swim back to the top and try and get a hand back on the boat, because if that had kept going, imagine what it would like to spend the rest of the night swimming after your boat trying to chase it down. That would be terrible.
Jeez.
I think we had luckily the auto helm wasn't working.
Yeah.
So we had an auto steering system. And if that had been working and we'd been tossed off, then it could easily have just gone all the way to the finish line without us on it.
Yeah.
That would have been
Do
really
you guys have
rubbish.
no one monitoring you guys via radio or some form
Yeah, I
of
mean, eventually
surveillance?
after a couple of days, they would have thought that's strange. There's no one answering. But
Really?
what would
So
they
you
have
guys
done?
cut contact after your electrical issues.
We had satellite phones.
Okay.
We had a satellite phone.
Yep.
Yeah, and the boat had a beacon on it that flashed twice a day. wasn't as good as the ones they have now. And so eventually, I mean, they'd have found the boat, but I mean, would have been long dead by then.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So after you finished that race,
Yeah.
then you were like, "Fuck, I need to do another one."
No,
Or what was the?
I thought it's a very hard transition to go from doing a big adventure like that when you've been so single-minded for 2 years and then just obsessed for 40 days to go back to the real world.
Did you
That's
rest up?
really tough, because you've that huge thing that's been the magnet that's been pulling your life straight. It's been taken away from you. So then I went back to work. I got a job.
What did you do?
Why not? I worked at Spark. I worked in one of the strategy teams at Spark.
Yeah.
It was telecom then, and there was me back in the office. The problem is
Fluorescent lights.
cubicle. And I thought, hang on, this isn't right.
Sure.
So it didn't take long. It was much shorter this time. So it was probably after about a year. I thought, no, it's not right. It's good to have money though. It's good to be
Right,
earning money.
100%,
Isn't it?
yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
You get to get yourself sorted a little bit. Got to move out of home. Got a little
Right,
apartment. Yeah, no,
nice.
it's good. But this time I'd had a taste of adventure, and the number one thing you get from doing stuff like that is that what's stopping me from doing something else? I can do something else now.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you that the South Pole had been my original goal, but it always seemed too hard, and now it didn't seem too hard anymore.
Right.
I was like, hang on, I could just learn the skills. Like I thought I had to. You thought you have to be, some sort of Norwegian skiing superstar.
Yeah.
And then I can do this.
Yeah.
And so set about starting to learn the skills. And
So how long did it take you, the training?
this was
or
a
what
bit
was
shorter, I think.
the
I would have
resume?
to say it was probably less than a year,
Right.
maybe a year from finalising the concept. To putting
So
my
you
foot in the
went
ice.
from one side to the other and back, or just one side?
We started from the coast to the pole and back again was the plan. Yeah. So the idea is that we would have been the first to have done that unassisted. So you can't.
Unassisted.
Unassisted means you start off with all the food and fuel for the whole trip in your sled. So you start off with this really appallingly heavy sled. Yeah.
So how many kgs were you carrying?
160 were on the sled.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
160. Well, how many
160.
hours a day? 10, 12?
Yeah, he got up to about 12 hours.
How did you measure the amount of energy you're burning, and how did you source your food after that,
During that, you mean?
During the time, yeah. Or did you plan how much fuel you were burning, or
Yeah.
how much fuel you needed intake, like food-wise, energy?
We had some idea because of what we'd been through on the rowing race.
Okay.
And part of the problem is, well, also you look at what Captain Scott did. You actually look at because they list out what the food they take. You run fines, for example. He lists out the food that he took and how many calories he took and how much weight that he lost during the trip. So part of the juggling act is you can't take all the food you need for the trip.
Yeah.
So even though you're taking 16 Big Macs worth of food every day, it's quite a lot of food. Like you'd be hard pressed in a normal day to eat that. You are still, that's much less than what you need. So you eat yourself on the way to the pole. You get skinnier and skinnier. So we lost, despite eating all this food, this junk. Well, I'm not saying that we took. Actually, Big Macs would have been more healthy compared to what we took, because what we took was about 60% fat. We would eat raw butter. Would be a very tasty snack.
But wouldn't you go into? Was it just fat, high fat, low?
High fats and a bit of carbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you
and
into
a bit of protein.
ketosis or?
I don't. I think. How can you tell? You tell because your breath
I'm
goes
not
really bad,
sure.
doesn't it, or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's because you might. I heard once you get into ketosis, you have a lot more energy. Then.
Yeah. You know, then
you're
we
burning
definitely weren't in ketosis.
Right.
We were short of energy. So yeah, the food is a big trick. Getting that right, the nutrition is
hard.
Really hard.
So do you guys portion like a little bit each hour or?
Yeah, we'd have to stop for snacks.
Jeez.
And you're starving, just hallucinating about food all the time. It's all you can think about.
Food.
During the day. And at night you get into the tent, you actually can have a big meal and then you're okay. Breakfast, huge meal. And then you're starving. You're starving the whole time. I mean, but as you say, you're starving your whole time. Twice a day you eat this huge meal. Yeah. You feel good. And then very quickly you're starving again. Because the weird thing is how much food you eat, but the amount of energy that you're putting into pulling the sled is extraordinary. The amount of energy you're burning to deal with the cold, incredible. So even though you're eating all this food, you're losing 0.5 kilo of body weight a day.
That's a lot.
It's insane.
Well,
I know. We look like
Ooh.
skeletons at the end.
So what were you thinking about pulling this sled?
I was thinking, let me tell you what I was thinking. Let me think. I was thinking, what have we done?
Yeah.
This is nuts.
Yeah.
We're going to die out here. I'm not going to die,
Well, how long did it take you?
50 days. 52 days to get to the pole.
So what were you thinking? After the first day, you might have thought about something. And then what was the thoughts like?
Yeah. There were a lot. You have a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
People say, you must have a lot of time to think in the South Pole.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about? So I'd like to think, I solved this big, weighty, philosophical problem. No. I learned to take more food. You do start to think a lot about friends and family back home because it's a terrifyingly hostile place, right? And you're on the limits of the ability that you can understand, that you can live through it, right? You feel right on the edge. You start to wonder, particularly after the first week or two, when you start to notice you're starting to lose weight, is this what death feels like? I'm walking in this white, freezing cold place that does not give one toss if I'm alive or dead. Like there's not a flick, there's not a microbe that's alive that's around you.
Jeez, that would be scary.
And the wind's blowing the whole time. You can't talk to the other person. You're
dry.
lost in your own little world. Very dry.
Very dry.
Very dry.
Jeez.
Yeah. Sunny though. Sunny the whole time.
Really? No clouds. It doesn't snow
Clouds?
there, does it?
No, there are clouds.
Okay, there's clouds.
Yeah. Thin,
But
wispy
sunny.
clouds.
Right.
When I say sunny, the sun's up.
Right.
So you can have days you can't see the sun. You're in a whiteout.
Really?
Yeah. It's like walking inside a golf ball. It's just, from that last time you walked inside a golf ball. You can remember. You'll be able to know that.
Damn. So 52 days.
52 days. Yeah.
Ooh, 52 days and just walking
Just
for
trekking.
12 hours.
Yeah.
Every single day you wake up. And you couldn't talk to anyone. Not your car.
Not
for
during
those
the
12
day.
hours. Yeah.
Like on the boat, we could sing and laugh and chat.
Yeah,
have a talk. It's good times.
Yeah.
No, as soon as you start walking, you just... at the end of every 80 minutes would stop for, say, 10 minutes. And then we would, during that time, you could sort of grunt a few words.
Yeah.
But, your face is covered. Your eyes are covered. Everything about you is covered. All you can do is, put a little bit of food under this neoprene drape that we had. But it's actually worse than I'm saying.
Yeah.
You cannot underestimate how bad it is. For example, you've got goggles on, but you sweat around your eyes, and so ice crystals form inside thing. So you actually struggle to see. So all you can see really is just the shadows of the imprints of your skis going backwards.
How do you go to the bathroom in Antarctica?
Yeah, really quickly and downwind. And
Mine
don't
is-
screw it up
Damn.
because you're in big trouble otherwise. Yeah.
Did you guys plan on how you guys going to do that before then, or?
Yeah. I'd been up in the Arctic.
Yeah.
I'd done a training course up in the Arctic, and it got really cold up there, really, really cold. And so I kind of had some experience of what it was like to be in that cold.
Yeah.
Jamie hadn't been able to make that trip, and his first experience of that kind of cold was being in Antarctica, which is really...
So was it with Jamie, the person you rowed
Yeah, the same guy.
Same guy you did,
Yeah,
you did row and Antarctica?
Row, and the South Pole, and then the TV show.
Right, yeah, I've seen the TV show.
Oh, you have?
Crossing,
Some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting, how the olden day people used to cross. I watched the episode in Milford Sound.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The Grave Talbot.
Yeah.
Pass. Yeah.
That was quite...
The stories are amazing
yeah.
back then.
That was very cool. Is that what you did after the Antarctica trip?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, a couple of years afterwards.
Right. How was that?
The
That's
TV
very
show?
interesting. And yeah, the TV show, the
Fascinating.
concept.
Great
Did you
fun.
guys develop the concept, or were you guys...
No.
Right.
We were just acting. We were actors.
Actors.
Just talent,
Yeah.
they call it.
So all
Where's the
those
talent?
stunts and stuff, were they unassisted, or was there...
Who's going to listen to this podcast? I mean, how guys going to be here? A lot of the stunts were exactly as you see them.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of everything you saw was real.
Right.
If you didn't see something, though, it probably didn't happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there were things that happened that we hadn't planned on. That
Yeah.
were the scariest things. Like, in fact, in the entry of the start, the opening credits, you see me trying to be lowered down a cliff and on a flax rope, and the rope breaks. That was 100% not planned. I fall into water, but we didn't expect the flax was going to break. On another show, Jamie nearly drowned, very nearly drowned. It was horrifying.
The river.
In the river. That was in the Bullet Gorge one.
Yep. Because that river was, man,
That was
terrifying.
yeah. There's a lot of all the shows were there was often a river crossing scene. That was tough. Yeah, we had some. There were some things that looked. The thing about shooting those stunts is that sometimes you'd do something simple and it would look really good. Other times you'd be really risking your neck and it would look pretty normal. So you saw the Grave Talbot one. So you saw us dangling over this huge abseiling kind of down. I think that probably in the show, there was one where they were using grass. They were tying the rope onto grass. That didn't work. We did that on the show. It didn't work. Yeah. We showed that it didn't work, but they did it. Yeah. That cliff we were abseiling off, it was terrifyingly high. It's extraordinary. If you fly on a helicopter from Queenstown to Milford Sound, you fly over it or right past it, and it's absolutely extraordinary. I think it's like a 3,000 foot drop. It would be a great place to do base jumping. You could really do an awesome base jump.
Yeah.
And that was quite something to abseil off that.
Yeah.
So we always, the old ropes were backed up. Like if we were showing that we were on a hemp rope or something, there'd be a nice modern rope in there as well. Yeah. Because you got to comply to health and safety standards.
It's really amazing and fascinating how people in the old days did that.
Yeah.
With the equipment and knowledge of things
so
at that
staunch.
time.
They were so tough.
Yeah.
And they would take a blanket and go and live in the bush, just eating birds.
Yeah.
Kiwis and takahes.
Yeah.
And that's what they would do. But they would starve and get cold and wet and live really
I would
unpleasant
imagine a lot
lives.
of them would have died during
Exactly.
this.
So the ones that we are doing stories of, the ones who lived through it. Yeah. So that was a huge thrill to tell those stories. I didn't know nearly enough about local adventure stories.
Mm.
There are some and there are lots of them. We could have kept on making that show, or other interesting stories of adventurers that Kiwis have done in the past around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I saw that one episode and I was like, damn, they actually did that. And that time as well. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough guys.
Very fascinating.
But we did one not about climbing Mount Cook, but the guy, the Fife who climbed. We did the mountain he climbed before he climbed Mount Cook. So he was as he trained to do this, and they were just really tough and very skillful and sure-footed and immensely strong. Mm. Yeah, it was fantastic.
So through all this, like, what's one major lesson
from
you've learned from these adventures?
From these adventures, I had a lot of time to think as I walked to the South Pole about what I've learned.
52 days, fucking hell.
But in that last week in particular, I was thinking, because by then, actually, as you get close to the pole, it becomes what you think it's going to be. So it's like sugary slopes. It's not. It's not really tough. It's because the ice gets quite cut up further away from the pole, and so you're pulling your sled over these mounds of ice. It's horrible. Near the slope, near the South Pole, the weather improves, the wind dies down. You get these beautiful, absolutely freezing cold days, like minus 30 days. But it's you're not going to die, which is good. At least you die of cold. And so I was thinking, this is a big lead up for me to say I couldn't work out what I had learned. All I learned was that I'm not the kind of person who can't do these things.
Right.
You're right? Because, I'd like to say you can do, what I learned, Tazo, is you can do anything you set your mind to. Mm-hmm. I'd like to say that, but that's not true. There's lots of things I can't do.
Yeah.
But I guess I have to back myself a little bit more than I did. You know, it's about now I think I understand much more that if I want to take on a big goal, it is a question of just working out what it takes to achieve it, finding out what the method is, learning the skills, particularly big meathead goals like this. Do you know, towing things a long way. That's not terribly hard. I mean, it's boring. Yeah. Starting your own business, being an entrepreneurial success, that's hard. Yeah. Because doing these things, you can control most of the variables that are going to make you successful or not. You know it's going to be cold, you take warm clothes. You know where the crevices are, you walk around the outside of them, right? But if you're going to start a business, there's lots of things about the market and your offer and how you make things or whatever, the service, that you can't control. And so that's a really tough thing. But so I struggle in some ways to think about what I have learnt about myself. But I did learn a great deal about teamwork.
It's honestly,
I learned about how to take on. I learned that here. I mean, when I give my speeches, you ask the question, "What did I learn?" When I give my talks, I talk a lot about what I learned. The problem is it becomes part of you. So I think it becomes difficult when you ask that question to just instantly come up. Because part of me thinks, I'm still that guy from Howick who went to Maclean's College and
Maclean's up the castle, eh?
And my two older brothers went to Pakuranga. Maclean's had it in Biggar. Yeah. And so I've kind of got this. Maybe it's like an underachiever complex of things. Like I said, if I can do these things, how hard can they be? Yeah. But now, just because I don't think I can do something, that's not a reason to not do it. Just because I think of reasons why it might be a bad idea, there's not reasons to not doing it too. There's lots of reasons why going to the South Pole is going to be really hard. Yeah. But I know that if you can see them in the first few seconds of thinking about them, then you can do something about it. You know it's going to be cold, you take warm clothes. Your bum's going to be sore rowing across an ocean. So make sure you've got a nice, comfy seat. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, what I really find inspiring is that you set these goals and you plan and you work and you train towards it and you go through it and you complete it. That's what's really cool about it, because, oftentimes everyone has this sort of issue is with they want to do something.
Yeah.
They might plan, they might, train hard, but they won't execute. They won't actually go follow through with it to the end.
Yeah.
And that's what I find really fascinating, is because when people actually do that with extreme goals, that's like, shit, like maybe I could just sort my shit out and do it myself, Sort of that wake-up call.
Yeah, I'm just very conscious of this bad advice industry thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you see someone doing an extreme goal, almost always it's either simpler than it looks, or they have very carefully worked their way up to that point.
Yeah.
Like if you see a guy doing a motorbike stunt, doing a backflip on a motorbike, it's not a good idea to go out and do a backflip.
Yeah.
And you see how they learn, though. You see they jump into foam pits and do a lot of that before they first do their first flip. And they're very carefully, one little step at a time, until what they're doing is really far removed from what a normal person could do. So there's something about that. But you're right that lots of people don't execute, don't have
the follow through.
The other thing is, I think part of the reason is, my little pet thing at the moment is about failure. I think we talk about, we have our approach to failure is kind of strange, and I think we need to be much smarter. I can't believe that we're talking about. It's crazy in 2019 that setting goals and achieving them isn't taught at schools. I mean, I think the most that people get taught is SMART goals, right? Goals need to be specific.
Yep.
Yeah. Or do you get taught more than that?
I think it depends. Like, being at school, you'd see the different types of students. You see the people that want to get something out of school. You see the people that are here just for the sake of being there. I think even if they did teach it, I think even to a degree, they sort of teach it. Maybe implicitly or explicitly. But when is it the person's responsibility to teach it to themselves and to actually go seek, what's the best way to set goals? Or what's the best way to follow through? Because information is not what's restricted. We search it on phone. We could go meet someone like you or meet someone else or actually talk to someone. Information now is not as restricted as it was maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Because we could say, fuck, the school doesn't teach us jack squat in the big scheme of things.
I just think that there is, that is true too. There's lots of life skills that I think the schools should teach.
100%.
I did physics, so I used a lot of the maths I used at school. Yeah. But a lot of people wouldn't use all the maths they used at school. I haven't used any of the chemistry that I learned at school. But there's lots of things that would be useful. And I can't blame school about this. And it's not, our state of our knowledge about setting goals, I just think is really bad. I just think people think all there is to achieving in life is to set a SMART goal. But SMART goals have lots of shortcomings. You can set. I won't go into it. I'm trying to write. I'm writing a book. About it. It may not be a book. It might end up being a bunch of blogs. Because I think that's interesting. Failure is really interesting too. Yeah. Because
that's an interesting topic.
It's a fascinating topic because I think a lot of people don't take on goals that they should because they think they might fail at, and even if they did fail, they'll have been left a lot better off. Yeah. And then I think a lot of people quit early on their goals because they think they're going to fail. Yeah. Which even if they persisted would have made them a lot better off, even if they failed, because there's a problem in our language in that failure is used for exactly two different things. One of them is a fatal, catastrophic breakdown of a element, like this. This watch failed, our landing gear failed. And then we also use failure for not achieving your goal. Yep. And in our head, we confuse the two. Like not achieving your goal. I set myself the goal of making $1 million this year. I only made 990,000. You loser. You failed. Yeah. You didn't achieve your goal. No one would say that, right? Yeah. No one would say that. But but people think about failure in their heads.
Like that.
They confuse it in their heads about taking on something. I had one of my coaching clients was losing weight. He set himself a weight loss goal. He wanted to lose, I know, a certain amount by a certain time. He was losing weight, but he wasn't going to meet his goal, so he quit.
Right.
You see people who, which is insane, right? But you see people who are. I guess I talk to sales teams sometimes, and it's really easy in the middle of the year when it doesn't look like you're going to meet your sales targets to go, well, what's the point? I'm not going to meet my goal for the year, so I might just do it. Take it easy, back off. Nuts. Well, it depends on the incentives that they have on them. Sometimes the incentives can be nuts.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that we have to. There's two sorts of goals in life. I call them. I hope this is useful. Ramp goals and step goals. A ramp goal is the more effort you put in, the more you get out.
Okay.
A step goal is you put a lot of effort in, and either it'll go well or it'll go really badly.
Yeah.
So I call them step because if you did this on a board, you had effort on the x-axis and benefit on the y-axis. Ramp goals look like a straight line. Step goals either go that way or that way.
Yeah.
If you're trying to defuse a bomb, it's a step goal because either it's going to go really well or it's going to go really badly.
Yeah.
If you are going to study for an exam, then it's a ramp goal because the more you do, the better off you are. You might set yourself the goal of getting an A, even if you get 79%, get a B, you're still much better off than you were going to be. And every hour you put in, you're better off than what you were. And so these goals are quite different. But I think every one of your goals can probably be split into those two camps. And the problem is that we treat our goals always as if they are step goals. We treat them as if we're defusing a bomb or trying to do a backflip on a motorbike.
I see.
So if you're not going to achieve it, you can quit.
Yeah.
If you are going to achieve it, then and so at any point during the time you think you're going to be doing it, you don't think you're not going to make it, then you stop doing it. Whereas almost always our goals are like ramps. And the problem with SMART goals, for example, is they almost certainly they make you set up a step goal. They put this overlay on top of your goal, which is turned into a step goal. And do I sound like a maniac now or not?
No, I think it makes sense.
I hope so.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Kevin, thank you very much for giving up the time to do this. Really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, Kevin. Cheers.